And who knows the real answer to this thing? I mean, I feel sorry for anyone who has to make the decisions, honestly. Later on in our television series, and I played myself just as Roy has always played himself, as Dale Evans, as a Western character. Besides, you were Nist's mother, she, when we got married, I had 3 babies, so that's right. I had to lower myself just so my husband could shine, and he wasn't thankful for it at all. February 7th, 2001, Dale Evans lay on her hospital bed at the age of 88, surrounded by the children who had gone through so many ups and downs with her. In the final years of her life, she began revealing truths that shocked even those who believed they knew her well. The Queen of the West, America's warm-smiled cowgirl, was not the complete image the world had always seen. For more than 50 years, she carried secrets that could have shattered her career had they been exposed earlier. Deceptions. Hollywood pushed upon her a seemingly perfect marriage filled with loneliness and tension, and the heartbreaking losses of her children, losses that nearly broke the faith she had relied upon all her life. This is the story of Dale Evans, the woman behind the spotlight, behind the glittering stones and the smile America once adored. Few people know that before becoming Hollywood's Queen of the West, Dale Evans had once been a teenage mother rejected by society. Back then, she still used her birth name, Frances Octavia Smith, a young girl from the small town of Uvalde, Texas. In 1927, Frances was just 14 when she ran away with an older boy. Only months later, she became pregnant and gave birth to a son named Tommy. At 15, she held her baby in her arms, living in a shabby rented room in Memphis. Her husband left without a word. With no money, no help, and no skills, Frances had to take any work she could find to raise her child. Oddly enough, Frances had a striking voice, bright yet full of emotion. She managed to get a small singing job at a local radio station, where the program director, Al Baker, immediately saw her potential. But only weeks later, Frances was called into the office and given a gentle but cruel request. They told her, "You have a child? That won't do. You must choose. Remain a mother or become a star." In conservative 1930s America, a young woman with a child and no husband was unacceptable, especially in entertainment, where image was everything. Frances had no way out. For Tommy's sake, she swallowed the humiliation. Her son would no longer be her son. To the public, Tommy would be her younger brother. The stage name Dale Evans was created in 1931, and from that moment, the deception began. On every poster and in every magazine photo, Dale wrapped her arm around Tommy like a loving older sister. The boy simply followed her instruction because his mother told him, "We're playing a part, just a part." Once, during a radio taping at KFWB in Los Angeles, a reporter casually asked Tommy, "Where's your mom?" The boy glanced nervously at his mother. Dale stepped in immediately, smiling brightly. "He's confused. He always jokes by calling his sister Mom." But not everyone was convinced. Some journalists, including Martha Sedgwick of the Los Angeles Mirror, reported suspicions in 1938 that Dale Evans was hiding her past. Rumors surfaced that Tommy was not her brother but her son, yet 20th Century Fox quickly shut down any such articles. Writers who pushed too far were banned from the studio's sets. Years later, in a handwritten letter to her close friend, actress Jane Withers, Dale wrote, "The night I stood at the premiere watching Tommy behind the barricades like a stranger, I wanted to run to him and hold him. But I wasn't allowed to. The mother in me died long ago, died the day Hollywood told me to pretend I didn't have a child." Not until 1947, when Dale married Roy Rogers and gradually broke free from studio control, did she publicly acknowledge Tommy as her son. But by then, Tommy was a young man with distant eyes. The years of pretending to be siblings had carved an irreversible divide. In her memoir, Angel Unaware, Dale never mentioned Tommy by name, but she dedicated an entire chapter to the ache of hiding her own child for fame. She called it the deepest scar of my life. This isn't just a sad story. It's evidence of how Hollywood once operated, an industry that reshaped personal emotions into a perfect public image. Dale Evans was not the only one forced to live a false life, but she was among the few with the bravery to reveal it, even if it was too late to mend the wounds. But the tragedies didn't stop there. Just as she began breathing freely in the truth with her son, Dale stepped into another wave of losses, this time even more crushing: the children she could not protect. Sudden passings, small graves, empty spaces no amount of fame could fill. The next chapter is filled with heartbreak no newspaper of the time dared to print because it contradicted the ideal family America worshipped. Yet these were the truths Dale Evans left behind, and soon you will understand why she said, "I lived my whole life in a movie, but I wasn't always the leading role." The golden age of American television produced many icons, but few reached the wide influence of Roy Rogers and Dale Evans. They were not just performers, they symbolized family values, faith, and kindness in post-war America. For more than 2 decades, they appeared on every magazine cover, every TV channel, every stage from Las Vegas to Oklahoma City. But because their public image was so bright, their private tragedies were deliberately hidden. The story begins on an August day in 1950 at St. Joseph's Hospital in Burbank, California, where Dale gave birth to her first child with Roy. She was a beautiful baby girl with wide eyes and tiny clenched hands. They named her Robin Elizabeth, but the joy lasted less than an hour. The doctor returned to Dale's room, face somber, and said Robin had Down syndrome and several congenital heart issues. At that time, such conditions were considered devastating, especially in show business. Republic Pictures, where Roy Rogers was under exclusive contract, worried immediately. A public relations advisor even met Dale personally, suggesting the couple consider special care facilities because the public may not accept this. To Dale, those words were like a blow. She had carried the baby. Nothing could make her abandon her child. For 2 years, Dale and Roy cared for Robin with all the love they had. She even brought Robin on stage during fan meet and greets in Santa Monica, ignoring the studio's warnings. But tragedy struck. On August 21, 1952, just days before Robin's second birthday, she passed away from respiratory complications. Newspapers mentioned her passing only in a small corner column on page 7 of the Los Angeles Examiner. No photos, no public service. Everything was arranged quietly to avoid harming the couple's brand image. Dale never forgot. She wrote Angel Unaware in 1953 as a way of speaking to Robin's spirit. The book touched millions of parents, especially those with children facing similar conditions. But in Hollywood, her honesty was unwelcome. Some conservative writers, such as George Sellers from The Hollywood Reporter, accused her of using personal hardship for emotion. Dale gave no reply. She simply kept writing. After that, she appeared alone less frequently, and Roy increasingly became the primary face of their shows. It seemed tragedy had finally passed, but 10 years later, it returned. In 1964, a bus accident on the Ventura Freeway took the life of Debbie, their adopted daughter. Debbie was 12, a diligent student at Trinity Christian School in San Fernando. That day, she was on a church outing when the bus overturned going downhill. Police reported that the brakes slipped in the rain. Debbie died instantly. The story was mentioned briefly on stations like KTLA and CBS Local, but nearly no one mentioned her connection to Dale and Roy, even though they were her parents. In a 1973 TV Guide article, journalist Carol Powers questioned whether the media had been asked